Well, ladies and gentlemen, looks like we have ourselves another example of running damage control for Sweet Baby Inc. And we are like 6-7 months after the initial article that was written by Alyssa Mercante. Maybe not 7, I think like 6 months, but this is well after the initial article that lit the internet on fire and made everybody realize exactly what the mainstream journalism is trying to do, which is what they've always been trying to do for years. And that's run damage control for companies that they are in bed with, that they financially rely on, that they absolutely need in order to maintain their access. So we have an article here from The Gamer, and it says, interview with all eyes on Sweet Baby Inc. The developers are just getting on with their jobs.
But I think it's still amazing that I can be seated in a meeting and told that out of 12 characters, we already have one black one, so there can't possibly be a second. I get that way too much.
Now, if you guys have noticed in the last, I would say few weeks to even a month, maybe, there has been a lot of damage control articles, a lot of damage control videos, a lot of damage control in general for Sweet Baby Inc. And Kim Belair is at the forefront of all of it. Obviously, she had a little bit of a conference at the XOXO conference where she basically had this entire 30-minute session of woe is me, everybody's attacking me kind of a thing. Sweet Baby Inc. has definitely been on the defensive in the last few weeks, and this is just another example of it. So let's get into this article, guys, from The Gamer. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. Now, this article is interviewing somebody called Grant Roberts, who apparently has been in the gaming industry for 25 years and believes that it's now in the worst state that it's ever been. With a seemingly endless stream of mass layoffs and studio closures, it's hard to disagree. Well, if you guys would actually care about the products you're putting out, number one, and care about the customer that you're trying to sell the product to, instead of attacking them like you're about to do in the next 5 minutes, I think that you would probably have a little bit more success. You know, maybe you won't be rich, but perhaps you would be having a little bit more success, and maybe you wouldn't have any mass layoffs or studio closures in any, crazy degree. You got to imagine that studios like Volition, for example, didn't have to close down, right? That studio did not have to close down. That studio could have made the same Saints Row game that everybody has always loved playing, just made it, updated graphics and everything. They could have did something that gamers actually wanted, but what did they give? No, they decided to give a modern audience version of Saints Row. They literally told people, if you don't like it, don't play it. That's Death Note number 1. Then they told people, well, stop being bigots, stop being chuds. You guys are losers and incels. That's Death Note number 2. I'm not even going to bother going into Death Note number 3 because that's enough to kill your game and your studio anyway. But job stability isn't the only force to play here. Grant Roberts recently spent 1.5 years working as a narrative director at Sweet Baby Inc., a consultancy company that, like all consultancy studios in games, largely went under the radar until earlier this year. Then all of a sudden, it was everywhere. Well, see, that's the problem, right? When you are not transparent over what you're doing and you try to hide things, especially from gamers, once gamers find out about one thing, they're going to find out about everything. That's the thing. You guys, unfortunately, went a little bit too much on the nose, and unfortunately, the game just ended up massively failing, right? Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League failed so miserably that people were trying to look for any answer as to why that is. And then what ended up happening was people started figuring out things. And again, I'm not one of those people that says, SBI is the sole reason why Suicide Kill the Justice League failed. I'm not one of those people, okay? I've said many reasons why Suicide Kill the Justice League failed, and they have nothing to do with SBI, right? But SBI's involvement absolutely has a problem to do with the story, which people had an issue with when it came to Batman and the Justice League and whatnot. Then it says a targeted hate campaign against the company, which again, if for it to be targeted, that means that everybody would have to have agreed to do it in unison. We would all have to be talking about it and saying, hey, we're going to do this at this time. You guys don't have any idea what targeted actually means, but that's besides the point, which often leads to harassment and abuse of its employees, which again, we've gone over all the harassment and all the abuse that Chris Kindred and SBI did to start all of this, by the way, because that's what they like to leave out. They don't like to tell you the truth. They like to leave out the part where it actually goes over Chris Kindred and SBI's involvement and how this led to Gamergate 2.0. But let's talk about what he has to say. So he was asked, I asked Robert, what does a narrative consultant actually does? Oh, this is a Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't do what you think they do kind of story. Okay, let's see what he says. The way I think of it is like two axes. He explained, there's the axis of the scope on what we do on a project, ranging from doing the entire narrative of the game, world building and writing and narrative direction, all the way down to reading somebody's design document or checking out a character bio. And yes, sometimes that takes the form of authenticity, sensitivity, and diversity and things like that. Okay. So what the fuck? You guys are literally admitting that what you do is what you thought what we thought you did. We know that you are sensitivity readers, you are diversity consultants. We know all of this stuff. So you're here admitting that, and then you're trying to call us chuds and liars. What are we doing? Then on the other side of it is the studios that we work with, ranging from enormous ones like Insomniac, Sony, and Microsoft, and those big companies, all the way down to small indies and other passion projects or student projects. He explains, what I got to there was a bunch of those different projects and do a lot of different scale of things, from writing cinematic scripts or something huge to just like reading somebody's design doc. There's all kinds of things that we do, but all of it is because a company came to Sweet Baby and said, please help us be the best version of what we can be. No, it's more like, hey, we have to hire somebody to do this job as part of our ESG investment requirements. So we're going to hire you. Would you be willing to work for us? And what do you charge? And we'll just include it in the budget of our game, which is already astronomical as it is. Can we be fucking real here at this point? You really think these studios want to work with a consultancy group? If they've already made the decision, as you say, to make characters ultra diverse and ultra woke or whatever, because that's what they say. They always say that, oh, the studios, they already had this in their mind. They already decided they wanted to do it. So if that's the case, you mean to tell me they couldn't see it through? If they were smart enough to make an ultra diverse team, character, whatever, you mean to tell me they can't follow it through? They can't finish it to the end? They got to hire you to finish it to the end? They have to hire you. That's the problem. These studios are required to hire you. Most of them anyway. This is a far cry from the picture being painted by its detractors, who reduced the work to adding queer characters and pride flags. No, that's not true at all. See, you guys are trying to make it into a simplistic argument because that then allows you to box the argument into whatever box you're trying to put it in. You're trying to put it into, oh, people just mad at gay characters. No, there's a much more nuance to the conversation, and there's a lot more conversation going on as a whole for you to not be able to say, oh, yeah, it's just about gay people. Yeah, that's a cop-out. That's an absolute cop-out. Often, Sweet Baby is attached to projects it had nothing to do with, as the studio's name has become shorthand for games that include diverse casts or progressive politics. Well, listen, you may have been wanted to be under the radar and you didn't want anybody to know about you, but the simple fact of the matter is everybody knows about you now. And when you are working on a game, they're going to call you out on it. It's just what it is. People can see what you do from a mile away. You want to know why? Because every game that you work on has had the same stereotypical characters in it. It's almost as if you do the same exact thing. It's almost as if every black character you make has to have a Killmonger haircut. It's almost as if every black character you have to have in the game has a Wakanda accent. Why is that? Every single black character has to have the Killmonger haircut and the accent. There is no such thing as just a normal, regular black character. And then you ended up doing Miles Morales already existed. Otherwise, you probably would have gave him a Killmonger haircut and changed his accent if you had to come up with him, your own selves. He says, you see the YouTube thumbnails and there's a little Sweet Baby logo on it, he says. Like, I would have loved to work on Dragon Age: The Veilguard. That series is great, but no, we did not work on Dragon Age. The list of games that we did not work on is pretty big, but you wouldn't know that by looking at YouTube thumbnails and posts by people on Twitter. Well, in all actuality, we don't tie your name to games that you're not on. You know what I mean? I know some people do as a joke, but ultimately, most people don't do that. Like Hit Detection, for example. We called out Hit Detection for what they do, Baby Ghost and all that. We called out all these companies that are involved in the games that they're involved in. We only call out you on the games that you work on. You should be proud of the games you work on. So why is it such a big deal when we call out your companies? Misinformation online is nothing new, particularly on YouTube and Twitter. With this in mind, Roberts feel like a campaign like the one we're seeing now was inevitable. Oh, really? Why? I wonder why you think that is. I think if it wasn't Sweet Baby that was the target of all this, and it probably would have been someone else. That's a fact. I do agree with that. I do agree that SBI was the company that got found, which allowed everybody else to look into it and dig deeper and find other companies. But if it wasn't SBI, somebody was eventually going to slip up. Somebody was going to get caught, and somebody was going to be the starter of this entire thing. But again, the only reason you sons of bitches got caught is because Chris Kindred was the one that openly tried to cancel and get Kabruta's banned on Twitter, on Steam, Steam and his page on Steam banned. He's the one that tried to do that. Had he not tried to do that, most people probably wouldn't even looked at Brutus for the most part. But you are the ones that Streisand him. And then by Streisanding him, you ended up turning this entire situation into Gamergate 2.0. That is your fault. You are the ones that did that. So at the end of the day, if you have such a big problem with everything that's happening, maybe you should look on internally and realize that it was Chris Kindred's fault. It was Sweet Baby Ink's fault that this whole thing started. And now you're seeing the let's just say the fruits of your labor. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.